YouTube is an incredible treasure trove of information, but there's a ton of information out there as well. In this video, I want to show you my favorite 3 microgreens YouTubers. Okay, so let's dive straight in. The top 3 of my favorite YouTubers when it comes to microgreens. So first up, I just wanted to make the comment that this space on YouTube doesn't have that many people who specialize in microgreens per se. There are a bunch of people who do it when they look at gardening as a whole, or what kind of crops to grow, that sort of stuff. So there's a bunch of people who refer to microgreens, but there's not all that many people who specialize in microgreens and actually share a lot of valuable information. My number 1 here is Curtis Stone. He's a farmer and author. His book, The Urban Farmer, is really popular, and on his quarter-acre farm he grows 100,000 worth of crops. That's just over 1,000 square meters, if you like to think in metric, and that's a phenomenal feat, of course. Now, what I really like about Curtis Stone is the way that he clearly practices what he preaches, and then he loves to share this information with people. It's not only through a book, so we're lucky that he's got a popular YouTube channel. You can see here at the moment of recording, this is well over 300,000 subscribers, and there's a ton of information, as I mentioned. And what I like most here, he's got a really cool video on common questions about microgreens. So then he just takes time to answer questions that people have, and questions that he often gets as well. But the other thing I wanted to just really recommend him for is how open he is with information when it comes to costs, for instance. So in one of his videos, he shares that he makes a gross profit of around $20 per flat, and it depends on the type of seed, but costs are between $2 and $5 per flat. And that kind of stuff is just really useful. It's not always that common to find people who are willing to share this information so readily. And yeah, I really like the guy. He's got a ton of videos out there, so I can highly recommend you check out his channel if you want to find out more about microgreens. So my next channel then, that is here, Microgreen Farmer. It's a guy called Nate Dodson, who I'm in contact with him quite regularly, and he really specializes in microgreens farming and also in sharing this information. So what Nate did, he started out running an urban farm, Hugs Farm. He had a clear connection. He was following basically what Curtis Stone explains, how you can make use of this space, high yielding crops that don't take up an awful lot of space. So he was running an urban farm basically on the mold of what Curtis Stone recommends. And then he noticed that he loved growing microgreens. I mean, this guy really likes growing microgreens and knows a ton of stuff about it. And he specialized in just that. And then back in 2015, he wanted to help other people. So he went into training other people. And that's how he ended up running a course in microgreens, specifically in microgreens, so no other crops. Now, what I really like about Nate is that he is always looking for improvements, always testing out things. And then he shares that with the community and obviously with his subscribers on YouTube as well. And one other thing, so he's also quite open in terms of the economics that are involved with the growing, which is a great thing, of course. That's really handy when it comes to making that decision on whether you want to start and get involved in growing microgreens or not. There's a ton of case studies, for instance, here people who make $3,000 a week. Here's some more people who've taken his course, but there's also some really good tips on, if you're considering starting a microgreens business. So there's a ton of information. And it's not just information, he also is just pretty generous with his time, really. So here, for instance, he's got a video that I really like, my favorite commercial microgreens, and it's just I think he takes about 12 minutes or so, nearly 10 minutes, to just sit down and talk to you, the viewer, on why he likes these microgreens, what they taste like, why the chefs like it, why he likes it so much. I mean, it's just really nice to see a practitioner just sit down, turn on the camera and just talk to help you, basically. That's my number 2 microgreens YouTuber for sure. So then it's on to number 3. I was on a podcast with Michael Kilpatrick, who's a really interesting guy. He does a lot of webinars, a lot of information. He's a consultant in the food industry, and he runs a podcast which is really interesting, the Thriving Farmer podcast, and one of those was on Josh Sattin. So I looked Josh up, and he does a lot of growing of other crops, and he does also do microgreens, but what he also does really well is just make really nice engaging videos. So Josh runs Sattin Farm, and he specializes in trying to grow better and not necessarily to grow bigger. And I mean, that is microgreens in a nutshell, basically, isn't it? Anyways, he's got a whole ton of videos here, and then he's got a specific playlist here with microgreens. And what I really like is that if you look into that, there's one here, Microgreens, Everything You Need to Know, and it's nearly 20 minutes of him just showing you step by step how he goes about growing microgreens. And he also explains that some of the decisions he had to make along the way and why he made the choices. So it's just one person doing it in his way. It's not necessarily saying this is the only way, of course. When it comes to microgreens, you can make a ton of decisions along the way, whether to grow in soil or whether to grow hydroponically. And for instance, this at the end, I think there's a section when he shows you how he washes his microgreens and then packs them, and he shows how, you know, he's got a dislike of plastic like most people now, of course, but it is a consideration, one of many, and he just decides to explain and share with us why he's chosen what he's using for packaging, which is just small plastic bags instead of clamshells, for instance, which you see a lot of microgreen growers use as well. So I'd highly recommend Josh, as well as a microgreens interesting YouTube channel, so do look him up. I think you'll find it very useful indeed. So I mentioned at the start of this video that there's a lot of people who grow microgreens as part of what they do, so it's part of a larger farm, for instance, and it's the same for us really. We mainly grow mushrooms, but we also like to grow microgreens because they're quite simple to grow, got a good profit potential, but they also complement really well. If you'd like to find out more about that, there's a video here called Growing Mushrooms versus Microgreens, and we do this, we record these things to try and help people and try and inspire people to grow more food where they are locally. So hope you're enjoying this. If you do, please subscribe to the channel and we'll be in touch. Thanks for watching.